Hi, I'm Sandy Powell, and welcome to the Roundtable. I have a very special guest today, and we'll be discussing a very, very important topic. Meet me back here at the Roundtable in just a few.
Rise from the ashes, so everywhere we go, our light be flashing. 'Cause you're alive, yes you're alive. You can rise as you're dusting off the ashes. Rise from the ashes, so everywhere that we go, our light be flashing. 'Cause you're alive, yes you're alive. You can rise as you're dusting off the ashes.
Oh, welcome back to the Roundtable. My special guest today is Miss Darrliena McDonald, here to talk about a topic that we all have experienced either through friends, family, or sometimes even in the church: sexual abuse of children. Welcome, Mrs. Darrliena McDonald.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming to be with us today. I'm excited. I'm happy. Why now? Why the story now?
Let me just say thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. And my jitters are gone.
Good. I'm glad.
So why now?
Why now?
It's time. We are in a place in society where anything goes. And it's not necessarily a good thing,
Right.
but it's not necessarily a bad thing either. Social media, the internet, pretty much makes it okay to do certain things. And a lot of people are becoming more open about who they are on social media. They're in the privacy of their own homes telling their own stories. So in having conversations with other people about my personal struggle,
Right.
it was time for me to talk about who I was. And I didn't want to continue hiding behind my past, but I
Right.
needed to be more organic with people about my struggle and my triumph. So this is why I want to talk about what I've gone through.
And so the topic being sexual molestation, that was you. And just to confess, that was me. And other family members of my own. We've all been there. And most people know somebody
Yeah.
who has been molested as a child, either, like I said, in the family or friends, and unfortunately in the church.
Yes,
And your story embodies all of that.
yes.
Can you share so that we can kind of show and tell how your story came about?
Yes. My story started when I was 5. My mother divorced my father and married a pastor, a preacher. He wasn't a pastor at the time, but married a preacher, and he was a young preacher. And in the beginning, he was very fun. We went on a lot of family trips together.
Wow.
I liked him. I really, really liked him in the beginning. He was just that type of outgoing, spontaneous type of individual that you wanted to be around.
Now, how old were you at this time?
I was around 5.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I was
Okay.
5 when they finally married.
Okay.
And got to know him, and then by the time I was about to turn 6, things really just took a left. And things began to happen.
And when you say took a left, that's where you started to notice.
The good guy became the monster.
Okay.
The good guy became the monster, and I became exposed to a lot of things that I never would have imagined as a 5-year-old. And it was sexual abuse.
Right.
I was exposed to pornography at a very young age. And I remember telling my aunt that something was happening at home. And she kind of put 2 and 2 together. So there was a situation where I had gotten a whooping for doing something. I
Right.
don't know what it was.
Child things, probably.
You know,
right?
I was a talker.
Right.
So I got a whooping. And my teacher noticed that I had bruises on my leg. And she began to question me, and Child Protective Services were called.
Wow.
They came to the school. They interviewed me, they made me show them my bruises, and I was horrified because I knew that he was going to find out. So my plan was to run away.
So when you say he was going to find out, you're talking about your abuser.
Yes.
Okay, and at this time, he's already sexually abusing you at this
Yes.
point?
Yes.
Okay, and so when you got the whipping, it's now bringing
Physical.
attention to you that you know he would now
Yes.
find out that somebody else might find this out.
Right.
Okay.
Right. My plan was to run away.
Right.
So I waited at school for everyone to leave, and I hid in the bathroom.
Wow.
So I'm hiding in the bathroom, and I can hear the buses are leaving. I have a twin, and I knew my twin would be worried about me.
Right.
But they left. So when I thought everyone was gone, I ran out the bathroom, out of the front doors of the school, and I tried to cross the overpass over the highway. The school was right across the street from this major highway, but I knew my grandmother lived on the other side of the overpass.
Right.
So I'm walking timidly to the overpass, and I began to step onto the pass, and I couldn't do it. You know, I was so afraid. So I turned around and I went back to the school.
Wow.
So when I got back, there was a janitor there, and he was like, "Who are you? Why are you here?" And I told him, you know, who I was, and my parents were contacted. So when I got home, Child Protective Services were at my house, and my abuser just gave me that look like, if you say anything.
Wow.
And I didn't. And I began to lie and tell stories about how I got the bruises. After that, we moved to Georgia.
So just a little bit back though, and I know you're young, and so I know that your memory is probably a little, you know, but when you were called in to be examined, I just find it weird and crazy that the school didn't call your mom to the school, and that they would wait and let you, if they thought Child Protective Services needed to be called in, that they didn't do something at that place, at the school.
Well, from my understanding, now to back up, I know I skipped a little bit.
Right.
After I told my aunts that something was going on at home,
Right.
I believe they did some type of investigation. And so when my teacher saw the bruises, she contacted them.
Ah, gotcha.
Right.
I
And
gotcha.
then they ended up going to the house to further investigate what was going on with me.
Okay. So now we're on our way to Georgia.
Yes.
And he has cleared, his story has cleared where you all are now, and now you're headed to Georgia.
Right.
Okay.
We're headed to Georgia, and everything about me changes. He also changes my identity. So I went from Darrliena McDonald to Darrliena. It changed to another last name.
Wow.
So he adopted me and my brother and gave us his last name. I didn't understand that. You know, being so young and my last name changing, I'm like, that's not who I am.
Right.
That's not my name.
Right.
Wow.
Was it hard for you to take that name on because of that?
It was. And he even gave us the opportunity to either call him Minister so-and-so or call him Dad. And at the time, my brother, he needed that father
Right.
figure, you know. So here's this great guy in my brother's eyes, you know, he's doing all this cool stuff. He's like, sure, I'll call you Dad. And we're young. And I'm like, you're not my daddy.
Right.
You are Minister so-and-so.
And is that what you continue to call him?
Well, he manipulated me.
Right.
He began to cry. And he said, well, your brother's calling me Dad, and you're not going to call me Dad?
Right.
And it made me feel guilty for choosing to stand my ground. And so I changed my mind, and I decided to call him Dad.
Wow.
And once I decided to call him Dad, that's when he gave us his last name, and we moved to Georgia.
Wow. So you get to Georgia, and the abuse continues up to what age now?
19.
So from 5 to 19, you are a victim of the man who calls himself your father,
Yes.
that has adopted you and taken you on as his daughter.
Yes.
And so, at any time, is mom ever around when this is happening? Or is this something that's happening when dad and you are alone?
Most times when we're alone. There would be some instances when she was in the house, she may have been downstairs cooking or outside, in the laundry room, but she was never just in the same place at the same time. So she never really knew that there was something going on. However, she did notice that there was a change in me as far as attitude. And
What was your attitude?
well, he used to make us compete for his attention. So he'd make me feel like I was her equal in some ways.
Wow.
And mom would have to remind me, look, I don't know what's wrong with you, but, I'm the mother.
Gotcha.
So
Right.
that was our dynamic.
So he put you on an equal footing as a woman with
Right.
another woman.
Right.
And so you took on that demeanor in a sense. Did you, in this time frame, did you feel as though it was normal? Like, was this the norm? Did you think other families operated like this, or did you?
I questioned everybody, every father and daughter I saw. And I would ask myself, I wonder what he's doing to her. I wonder if he's touching her. Like every father-daughter relationship I questioned.
And so for you, this was kind of just how life was.
Right.
And so now you're taking on a role as a spouse almost.
Right.
And feeling as though that we are equal.
Right.
And so mom, did he encourage that between you and your mother, this discord, so to speak?
Oh, he encouraged discord 100%. He would always have us feuding about something. And it got to the point where my mother, I feel like she felt like something was happening, but she didn't exactly know what was happening.
Right.
Because she too was being abused by this man, verbally, physically, emotionally by him. And later I found out even sexually.
Wow.
She was being abused.
Wow.
And there was a time when she asked me, are you okay? Is there someone touching you? And I would get so angry.
Did you feel like you had to protect him, or did you feel more like guarded of you don't want her to know what's going on?
Two things. I didn't want her to know what was going on because he had me in fear that he would hurt her. His thing was he would kill my mother, put her in a closet somewhere, and run away with my sisters, and no one would find him or my sisters.
Wow.
So that fear stayed in me for a very long time, that if I told my mom, something terrible would happen to her, and I'd never see my little sisters again.
So with the relationship with you and mom, so you felt like you didn't have an avenue to go and tell, or to go and question what was happening to you.
No.
And then you're put in a position as an adult with strife with your mother, the person that
Right.
you should be able to go to and
Right.
talk to. And so he's really just kind of setting up the perfect little
Oh, yeah.
barriers to keep you at odds and to keep this thing under wraps.
Oh, yes. He was very crafty at that. And being a, pastor, he was very persuasive and charismatic, and a lot of people were drawn to him. And I know that the word says that gifts, they come without repentance, and this man was gifted. He was anointed. He was prophetic. He was apostolic. He was all of that,
Wow.
and people admired him for that.
Wow.
And I would question God, like, Lord, as anointed as he is, and all these prophets and, pastors and ministers that are coming here, nobody sees. Can nobody pick up in the spirit what's going on?
Right. I think I answered that question one time we talked, and we were talking about this, and I was saying that sometimes when people are in these type of situations, when they're the one that is manipulating,
Yeah.
whenever someone addresses them, they separate themselves from that person.
Yeah.
The abuser, for the most part, will take a defense and now this person that did see or that is aware that something might not be right,
Yes.
they will isolate themselves and others from them to
Right.
make it seem like it's them
Right.
and not me. So don't look at me, look at them. This person's this, that, and the
Yeah.
third. And you may have
Yeah.
experienced
And
that.
I remember, when you said that, it triggered thought and memory that things like that did happen.
Right.
And people were exiled from the ministry and, couldn't come back and all
Right.
of that. So I know that's very true.
Yes. Did you ever feel like you were abandoned by God in this?
I did. I did. Growing up, although I was active in ministry, I was ordained at a very early, young age as a teenager.
Who ordained you?
He did.
Okay.
He did. We grew up Kojic, and I was on the praise and worship team, and even in that, he was doing the same to other young girls in ministry, where here are some other girls that I have to compete against to get his attention.
Wow.
And so one Sunday, he'd have me up leading. The next Sunday, he'd have somebody else up.
Wow.
Or when I felt like I was going to lead, he'd have that other person lead. So it just brought so much just
Tension.
confusion, animosity, and just hate in my heart, So I used to ask God, I didn't believe that he was real. And for a very long time, I questioned, who
God's
is this
existence.
God? Who is this God?
I would think that some of the tactics that he uses is really to keep everybody isolated from each other. Don't talk. Because if you keep you all at odds with each other, then no one will ever get close enough to maybe say, let me share with you something
Yes.
that's happening to me. So if he keeps what he considers healthy competition between you all, you'll always be at odds with each other, and especially we as women.
Yes.
To keep you all at bay with each other, not allowing relationships to happen that may actually generate communication.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
that's a tactic that's used in many, many occasions in this. One of the questions that I had for you is that when it happened the first time, the first time it happened, you were 5. What are you thinking? Can you remember?
Yes. Everything to me plays back like a video. So I can remember it from the first time to the last time. The first time I actually saw a carving of a woman performing oral on a man.
Right.
And I'm on the playground, and I'd never seen anything like that. But then again, I have a twin brother, so I knew we were different.
Right.
So when I saw the carving, I asked, what is this?
Right.
And this was the first time that I'd ever gone to him about anything. And he asked me, did I really want to know? And as a kid, I'm curious. I'm like, yeah, why is she doing that?
Right.
And that's when the abuse happened.
So then he physically showed you. Now, at the age of 5, you said when this first happened, had you already been exposed to pornography at this point?
I hadn't. Everything kind of just started happening like a domino effect. It was just his playground. Now, I was his playground. And he just began to expose me to everything he wanted to expose me to.
Wow.
And he made me feel like, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
a friend. I'm his best friend. I'm no longer even his daughter. You're my best friend. And because you're my friend, I want to show you this. Look at this.
Right. And so this is happening during your
Yeah.
5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7.
As a teenager, growing up, having to compromise for things that I should naturally get because I'm your daughter, but I want to go to the prom. Now I have to compromise in order to go to a prom or go out with my friends.
So this became kind of a payday
Yes.
to get things that you're supposed to have
Right.
just because he's your father.
Right.
And so now he takes advantage of his position.
Right.
And now,
He
wow.
called them deals.
Wow.
So it'd be like, let's make a deal.
Wow.
You want to go out, You want to do this? There was a time where I was doing a lot of oratorical writing and speaking, and he would help me with my speeches, and I would win. I would win. And when I won, they'd fly me all over. I'd go to Mississippi or Texas or wherever to
Right.
present these speeches. And one year I said, no, I don't want to make a deal. I don't want to do it. And so he made me feel so bad, and he wouldn't help me with my speech. And I remember losing.
How old were you when that happened? When he first,
I was probably 13, 14, around this time.
that's that puberty age, and you're starting to realize and recognize
Right.
communication with friends.
Right.
This is not normal.
Right. And I made up in my mind, I was like, I don't care. I don't care if I don't win. I will not make another deal with you to win. And I remember asking him, what you do to me, are you going to do this to my younger sisters, who are his daughters? And he laughed at me and said that my blood runs through their veins. They're too much like me, but you're my friend.
So his biological children weren't subject to his abuse
No.
because he felt like they were his.
Right.
But because you were just an adopted daughter,
Right.
that
It was okay.
you guys were friends.
Right.
When did you realize, you said no more deals. At that point, did it become confrontational as opposed to manipulated?
It never really became confrontational. It was always more manipulation and guilt. I can't believe you won't do this for me. We're friends. We're good.
Right.
You're my girl. Why won't you? But I know you need this, so it might be in your best interest to do this. And I said to myself, and this thought came when I was probably about 15, 16.
Right.
I don't know how and I don't know when, but I'm telling on you. I'm telling somebody what you're doing.
Right.
And that opportunity came about 4 years later.
Tell me about that.
Well, I had just graduated from cosmetology school, and I was working for Delta Airlines at the time. And I lived in Albany, Georgia, which is, it's not that big of a city,
Right.
but it's a nice sized city. So the airport has 4 flights in, 4 flights out. And this particular day, my mom was at work, my sisters were in school, and my brother was in his room asleep. And I remember him walking through the hall, and he's a real big guy. And I heard him come through the hall, and he tells my brother to get up and go run some errands. I believe the Lord told me to get ready to fight. This particular weekend, I was moving out.
Oh, okay.
And I finally had a boyfriend, and my boyfriend was going to help me move my things out. And I had gotten back in touch with my biological father, and I didn't explain to him exactly what I was going through,
Right.
but I told him that I needed to get out of this house. So he was, however I can help, I'll help. So my brother leaves, and the Spirit is just telling me, get ready to fight. And I'm laying in bed, and he walks in and pulls my covers off of me.
Right.
And he had never tried to penetrate me, but he had threatened or talked about having a child. And, if we have a baby together, your baby will look like this, and our baby would be beautiful, and we should come up with names. And I just felt so disgusted, like, I would never have a baby with you. Are you serious?
Right.
So he pulls my covers back, and I just remember fighting. And I wasn't a big fighter like that.
Right.
But this day I was stronger than I had ever been. And he's now laying on me, and he's laughing uncontrollably. I could literally hear the demons in his voice laughing out at me.
Wow.
And I'm just saying, no, no, no. And he says, well, you're moving, and, you're still a virgin, and I refuse to let anybody else take that before I can get that.
Wow.
And that made me even madder.
Right.
So now we're going at it. And the whole time he's still laughing, and now he's pulling me out the bed. And suddenly my cell phone starts to ring. And I had a bed where the shelves were behind the bed, so I could grab my phone.
Right.
And I saw that it was my mom calling from her job.
Right.
And he grabs it and he tosses it. But he didn't toss it hard enough where the battery would come out, but he tossed it. We don't have batteries like that anymore, but he tossed it. And when he did that, the house phone began to ring.
Right.
And then his cell phone began to ring. And I feel like he became convicted for a moment. And he gets up and he goes to his room to get his phone. So I hurry up and I grab my phone and I call my mom. And normally when I would call her job, it would be transferred to her desk.
Right.
This particular day, she answers the phone, first ring. So she answers and she could hear that something was wrong.
Right.
And I just told her, I don't have time to explain, Mom. I just need you to listen. Because I finally wanted her to really hear who this man was and what I was going through.
Right.
And so I put my phone under my bed, and sure enough, he comes back. And he begins to
Proceed
to what he was doing. And I began to beg him to go to the restroom. I told him I just wanted to take a shower. And so he, asked me, well, if I let you go to the bathroom, are you going to come right back? And so I'm like, yeah, I'll come back. I promise I'll come back. So he's walking on my heels to the bathroom.
Right.
And I start to run down the hallway, and he grabs me and pulls me into the bathroom and gets a washcloth and begins to bathe me as if I'm a child. And at that moment, here I am, 19. I felt helpless.
Right.
I'm like, okay, God, I thought you said you were going to be here to help me fight.
Right.
And I couldn't fight anymore. I was tired, So finally, he stopped.
I know this last segment has just touched you in your heart. Darrleena's story touched me as well. It's a story that I'm too familiar with in my own personal life and the life of my children. As a matter of fact, over 700,000 children can relate to Darrleena's story. I want to give you an opportunity to hear the final part of her story. I want you to go to my website at meetmeattheroundtable.com and click on the YouTube channel to see part 2 and the conclusion of her story. It's a story that we all need to familiarize ourselves with so that we're not in the dark and hiding from a real truth. Thank you for joining me here at the Round Table.
I am Arcasia Butler, founder of Uplift Mentoring at Central High School in Phoenix City, Alabama. I am so excited to announce our 7th annual Girls Rock Gala, where this year's theme is the strength of a woman, beautiful, confident, fearless. We are beyond excited to invite and welcome 11 amazingly talented women to our Girls Rock Hall of Fame this year. And we invite you to join us on April 28th, 2018 at 6 p.m. at Central High School. To purchase a ticket, please visit www.wctministries.org and access the Uplift logo. We look forward to seeing you this year, and we thank you so much for your continued support of Uplift Mentoring.